because it was working for me. But like I said, it was working perfectly before. So this whole time there's been no sound.
Yeah, that's awkward. You did say as well in the test run that these things run well when you're testing it, but when it comes to
they
the
work
actual,
perfectly in the test run. And it's one of those things that, you know, if I was if I wasn't self-conscious of looking across that way, I would have known, because I would have seen that first comment come in. But I've got a feed in here, and their comments don't come through to this feed, or they're not coming through to this feed. I don't know why. It's kind of upsetting. But let's hope that they're getting... Yay! Okay, we can hear now. All right, happy days. Yeah, sorry guys. I can't see the comments. Like, I've got my little comment boxes, and there was no comments. So for all that time, I thought no one was watching. Until I've got, as a backup, I've got a Facebook live feed going to the event page, and I've just noticed that there's a little comment section, but I can't figure out how to bring up the comments to be larger, which kind of sucks a little bit. But look, let's stop worrying about that. I might drag the comments onto a different page, and then I can see them a bit better, because it's a 5K screen. And I've got the tiniest little text, and it's like 2 meters away from me. So, Chris, are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah.
All right, happy days. I'll tell you what, just so that I can interact with people, because it just doesn't, as I said to you before, if you can't hear or see what someone's saying, it's just not the same. You want to actually chat to people. That was the whole thing about doing the live streams. I started doing them when, and I called it cabin fever, but I got rid of that because it's kind of a bit negative, I thought. But I started doing it when we went into lockdown, because I figured if there's a live show that happens every day or every few days, and we could all interact and talk about a topic, it's kind of like being in a bar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is why the camera angle is such that you've got the bar here. So it's designed to feel like you're sat at the bar, and the bartender's really not serving anyone and drinking Guinness on shift.
Yeah, I feel right at home, to be honest. It's been almost a year since I've been able to sit in front of a bar. So,
well, hopefully, if you make a trip over to London, you can come. And I kind of want to, when it all unlocks, get everyone who did the show virtually and get them to sit here and actually have a drink. Because I mean, I honestly, as entertaining as I pretend to be, it's more entertaining with real drink. You know, it's actually considerably more entertaining. I'm not saying that you'll become inebriated and the conversation might sound a bit more interesting, but certainly sitting here, when I pull down an old whiskey, it's just better to be actually able to taste it instead of watching me taste it and just kind of boast about my own product.
To be able to reach out and touch it as well. I think it'll get to a stage where it's actually almost bizarre being able to talk to people face to face at a bar setting.
Yep. I had my mother-in-law and my father-in-law in here a couple of weeks ago. They're part of our bubble. So they sat down, and just because of me, they come late at night and sat down, and they had cocktails just so that I could make someone drinks. That's how lovely they are. They're so lovely.
That was really nice of them.
Yeah, really nice of them. And I made, my father-in-law kept a track of every single drink I made, and I made 16 different drinks, which is pretty cool. But all this size, all little tiny baby ones. So I was making one cocktail, split it into 4, giving it out, making the next cocktail. It was awesome. It was my dream. It was so good.
It sounds like a real fun night.
So, right, speaking of you being here in the cabin, tasting real things, now, I wish that you could come here and taste all the different whiskies I've got and give me your opinion, and we can leave that for a later date. But I thought it might be interesting. You're the first person that, 2 things. You're the first person to get the new cameras, right? Which, if Adrian, if you're watching, is he? Yeah. What do you think of the new color scheme? Look at this angle. Whoa, look.
Boom.
It's more moody than before. And like, this one's not as good. I'm not as happy with this color grading. But then look at this, like, it's warm and fuzzy. Anyway,
that's the money maker right there.
Right? And this is the cinema camera. This is the fancy one. Oh, Guinness Cam is also a cine camera, but whatever. Now, my question to you is, right? you're the first person to get the nice, colourful, kind of warm cabin colours, but you're also the first person that I'm going to ask this question of. When I put your title up, I was like, Chris Pawar joins us from Belfast, and I want to really highlight where people are calling in from. So today, for the people who haven't been to Ireland, I thought I'd ask you the question, if I put up a couple of different whiskies that might be recognised internationally, and might not be recognised internationally, which one do I put up? Right, so I'm going to put up the Glendalough double barrel, and I'm saving the pot still Irish, because this is an Irish oak finish. I'm hanging on to that because I really love that. Right,
it's pretty special. I'd hide that away somewhere.
It's really good. Have you tasted it? Have you tried these, the pot still ones?
Tried a very small sample of it, fortunately.
Well, this is my second bottle, and and I've got no one else in here. I just keep it's so Moorish. But I've got bottle number 222 from batch 2, cask number 2, and then tree number 3, right? And I'm just like, tree number 3. Why tree 3? Why not tree 2? And I talked to the master distiller, and he said that they're going to reuse those casks because, obviously the trees were felled, but they can use the casks over and over. And have a nice little rotation of fresh new ones, and that's really interesting. All right, and this one, Tullamore Dew. Now, this is not the standard Tullamore Dew, it's Caribbean rum cask, but it's more about, in London, for example, right? Portobello Road Gin is highly respected. People are pouring Beefeater, and they're pouring Tanqueray. But, when people are outside of London, like they've never been to England, they've never been to London, and London is kind of synonymous, or England is kind of synonymous with gin, certainly London dry gin. It's hard to kind of guess which product would be really popular in London. For example, if you go to Germany, Bulldog Gin is super popular, right? And it comes across as if it's British. But it's that's not back in, you don't see much of that in the UK. Well, how is that so popular here? And then you realize Campari, and there's it's who the distributor is, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
in your opinion, so what would you see your guests think of, and the local bar scene think of these different whiskies in Belfast? In your opinion, right? I mean, so it's just it doesn't have to be positive or negative or anything. None of these people are watching, but what do you see them? Which ones do you see being popular? If you put them in front of someone, what's their opinion of them?
So up in Belfast especially, we would have a lot of movement from all the Middleton bottles. So anything from IDL, the likes of Jameson, is usually the go-to blend, which some people outside of Northern Ireland might find surprising. I feel like Bushmills might be the obvious one, given that it's from the North Coast, that it's from Northern Ireland. But I find that being the older generation drinking that a little bit more.
The older generation,
the younger generation.
More.
Oh, Bushmills.
Oh, Bushmills. Okay.
Yeah, I would say so. With Jameson, it seems to be a newer generation, more the younger guys would be drinking that. I think Jameson did fantastic work with their marketing campaign over the years when it comes to Jameson, ginger, lime.
Yeah, it works.
It'd be a go-to. In terms of single pot still whiskey, for sure, Redbreast. A lot of people would be more familiar with that. And the likes of Glendalough and Tullamore, not so much in the north, to be honest.
Really? Tullamore Dew's not as well known?
I mean, it would be stocked in most back bars, but it wouldn't be a big seller. And I don't know whether that's down to perception or what that is, but certainly Tullamore, I think, is one of the top selling Irish whiskies globally.
Huge in places like the Czech Republic and Poland and stuff like that, where people drink a lot of whiskey. Yeah. People
it's massive everywhere.
Yeah, it's huge everywhere, but that's one of the things. If you lived in Poland, or say you lived in Czech Republic, right, where Tullamore Dew is as bigger. I think it's bigger in Czech Republic. I could be wrong. Which country? I hope I'm not wrong. Not that anyone's actually watching to check that out. But say, for example, this is bigger in Czech Republic than Jameson's is, right? If you left the Czech Republic and went to Ireland, you'd assume that this would be as big as Jameson's in its home country, but often that's not the case, and that's what the aim of the question was. Now, me personally, I love this stuff. I love it. So, do you have a favorite go-to Irish whiskey? And also, one of the questions from Austin, what would you say is a good book on Irish whiskey?
It's been a while since I've picked up a book on Irish whiskey, but I've heard really good things about the book from the Boys of the Dead Rabbit.
From Barley to Blarney.
From Barley to Blarney.
Yeah.
I think would be a fantastic choice for someone to pick up as their first Irish whiskey book.
But you've not actually read it yet?
I haven't got my hands on a copy now.
Okay, good.
But I've only heard very good feedback, and I mean, these guys...
They know their
know
stuff,
what they're talking about. Yeah.
Right, cool. So there's a book recommendation. And he said great book. I think he's already read it. Or Adrian said great book. Right, so I'm going to taste these. So while I taste these, I'd like, again, ask you another question. For you to talk me through a cocktail that either has its roots in Ireland or is an Irish, like Belfast cocktail that you think people should know about.
One of the ones I always go back to in terms of a so-called classic cocktail would be the Tipperary. So a Tipperary is somewhat Ireland's answer to the Manhattan cocktail. It also has similarities to a Bijou, but swapping out the gin for Irish whiskey instead and playing about with the proportions. But it's a super old drink, and it's one that a lot of people still aren't familiar with. I think the first recorded listing of it was in 1922. It was Harry McAlone, ABC. Yeah, that was the first. That's the first written time I'd seen it, and then it was adapted for the Savoy Cocktail book by Harry Craddock. But it was equal parts, I think, in that book as well.
Yeah, they love their vermouth in that book, don't they?
Yeah, 100 super vermouth heavy, really chartreuse heavy as well. Yeah, so for those who don't know, the Tipperary cocktail is Irish whiskey based with sweet vermouth and green chartreuse. Stirred down over ice, served up. Little maraschino cherry or perhaps a twist of lemon.
So would you use... So you're serving a Tipperary in a bar in Belfast, right? And someone comes in and they ask for a Tipperary. Do you put a lemon twist and discard with a cherry in it? Or is it kind of that people aren't going to throw it back in your face if they get one or the other?
I don't think people would throw it back in their face if they get one or the other. And again, it's one of those drinks that still a lot of people, including the general public, don't really know of yet. But anyone who comes from England, Czech Republic, Australia, America, they come into the bar and they're looking for an Irish whiskey cocktail, it'd be one of the first drinks I would make for them.
Okay, so I've tasted these two. Like, this is absolutely delicious. I think it's got hints of that. It feels like they've gone after that Balvenie Caribbean cask kind of a little sweet floral note that you get from the rum cask. This,
I think it's a Demerara rum cask as well, so it's super heavy on the vanilla and the caramel.
Yeah, I think it's delicious. Like, it's exactly my kind of thing, right? This, you've got that easy to drink smoothness, but it's got an oily viscosity that you know you're not getting from this guy, and it's deeper in its spices, and it's also 42% ABV, so it's got a little bit more of a kick to it. The Jameson's 12. Now, what do you know? Do they still sell Crested 10 in Belfast? Was that just? Am I tripping on that?
I think you could still maybe get it in a bar. I haven't seen it in a while.
Because when I was working in Dundalk, Crested 10 was like the thing people drank when they wanted to be a little bit more fancy, but they weren't quite being this fancy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
what they were doing. They were like, oh, I'm not just drinking a Jameson's, I'll have a Crested 10. And it was like, ooh, you know, I actually started doing that when people ordered it across the bar. I used to, you've been to Dundalk, right?
I have, yeah.
Did you go to any of the pubs?
I was much younger at the time,
Okay,
from what I can remember, so I couldn't really tell you many of the pubs.
Well, if you do get the chance and you're driving through, for example, to get to like you can hit the main street, shoot down, and then there's a big shopping centre, and across from it there's a bar called the Windsor, which is the first bar I worked in Ireland, and it's a proper nice family environment. You know, like they do great food, it's super clean, super organised, great service. But back in the day when I was working there, the guys wouldn't let me pour them a pint of Guinness at first. I had a tan, an Australian accent. I was all excitable, and they're just the old boys were watching soap operas on their televisions and sitting at the bar drinking pints. Like they'd sit with one pint for, you know, an hour and a half and just watch the television. And when this one died, you know, it was one of those bars where there was a bar that went all the way across, but you were in the off license, and you had to serve people in the off license, and then you came out and you'd walk into a corner bar, and then there was a wall, and you'd walk from behind the bar. You could go into 4 different bars, if that makes sense. And yeah, Little Old Man's one, man, that was where the guys would be showing off to each other. Oh, I have a Crested 10, you know, like, really, dude? And they'd put bets on the horses. It was my favorite. See, I can't help but when I smell Jameson's, I get a hint of like a Middleton flavor to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like the watered down, like not as expensive, not as deep and rich version of Middleton. So which would you use for a Tipperary? Oh, that's delicious.
If I was to choose what you had at hand, I would probably lean towards the Glendalough double barrel.
Okay.
I really like the sherry finish on it, and it's got a little bit more of an edge to it. As you said, it's 42% as well. So
Redbreast, man. So
it's my desert island whiskey. If I'm reaching for a whiskey, and I'm going to pay good money for a whiskey, it'd be Redbreast 12-year-old. I think pound for pound, it's my favorite whiskey in the planet. It's hard to argue. I'll fight someone about it.
I'm not even going to say it, but you know what I'm thinking when I hear pound for pound. I think of like Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So did you know the story that apparently the Redbreast bottle was used to create the first ever mock-up of a bottle of Bailey's?
I have never heard that before. No.
So
you talking about this, like the super old bottles back when it was like Gilby's?
So get this.
When they were producing Redbreast, or
so this is a new Bailey's bottle, but back in the day, a marketeer in London, right, came up with the idea of like an Irish cream liqueur, and it was going to be cream and chocolate and whiskey, and instead of the kind of pitch you would expect, he went out and he got a bottle of Redbreast and he took the labels off. He got actual whiskey and actual cream and chocolate powder and whatever, and made a mock-up of Bailey's, come up with the fake name, and he took, and you can't see it so much anymore in the label, but you know Kerry Gold, the butter?
yeah.
Apparently the Irish government had been making butter for everyone else except for themselves for a really long time, and the Irish wanted their own butter brand, so they hired a marketing agency to come up with the Kerry Gold logo and everything, and they ripped that off and put the cows from the Kerry Gold bottle on the front of the first ever mock-up of Bailey's, from what I remember. And this bottle was used to mock up the very first bottle of Bailey's. Interesting fact. There's a book called That Shit Will Never Sell, and it's about this guy who come up with ideas for products, and he come up with Bailey's and Ciroc and Purdy's and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah,
He's a pretty smart guy. I mean, both like Redbreast, Bailey's, both delicious liquids for their different reasons, you know. Have you ever tried to make your Have you ever tried to make your own like Irish cream liqueur?
No, but there's one person that can do it. You know, Andrea Montague?
Yeah.
She makes a solid whiskey cream liqueur. She does it every Christmas. Really
It's
good.
fun to experiment with different whiskies and different additives when you're making it yourself.
Right, so Austin's saying, isn't Bailey's the first ever Molecro brand because they negatively charge some? I have no idea. But that's cool. I'll have to look that up.
No idea on that one.
Yeah, lost. Right, so Tipperary. So we're going with Glendalough. And as far as the vermouths go, so I've got Cocky Vermouth Torino and Martini Rosso. So which would you use?
Let's go Torino.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
And you said green chartreuse.
Yep.
And what proportions would you use in all these?
So regularly I would use 60 mils or 2 ounces of Irish whiskey, 30 mils or 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, 10 mils or 0.3 of an ounce of green chartreuse.
Okay.
I like to use Cocky Torino in Tipperary in particular. It's got some nice menthol notes, got a nice citrusy bitterness to it. I think it holds up a lot better compared to Martini Rosso, in this particular drink anyhow.
Yeah, there's a lot of botanicals in green chartreuse, and the same said for martini, so they might kind of bounce off each other a little bit more. And you said 1/3 of an ounce, right?
Yes, indeed.
We're getting...
Have you had a Tipperary before yourself?
I've had a Tipperary before. The time I had a really good one made for me, it's not something I would like turn to and make, you know what I mean? Like, but I will be making more of them now that you've shown me how to make a good one. Well, we're yet to find out, but I'm
see.
Pretty confident it's going to be great. Ooh. Right. I had a Tipperary for the first solid, like, wow, this is delicious, was in Vintage Cocktail Club in Dublin.
Yeah, great bar.
Almost 10 years ago now. Like, that's a
That bar's had some serious legs in the modern climate. Like,
what's that?
the bar's had some good longevity.
Man, it's a solid bar. I was shocked it hadn't, like, it should have been top 4 for world best new high volume cocktail bar or something, like at Tails. Like I went there and had such a good night, and every time I've been, it's been phenomenal. I'm shocked that it hasn't gotten more acclaim. Like, I think
especially when it first opened, it was a bit of a game changer in Dublin, from what I've heard from people who've lived and worked down there, and the guys that have come through VCC.
Well, it was a solid eye opener for me, because having worked in Dublin, I always thought that the Irish bartending scene was like very mature and very established, but in a way that you get a job in a pub, and you know, I worked in a solid 5 or 6 different places in Dublin, and they pay you reasonably well. You can afford to live. You do your 5 days a week or 4 days a week or whatever it is, or you work your weekends, and your shifts. The management manage your shifts really well. They manage your pay really well. Like, I apart from the first couple of places I worked at, once I got established in Dublin, I didn't have to fight constantly to get a day off if I asked for a day off. I didn't have to worry about coming into my shift and whoever closed the night before had done a terrible job. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, there's always been an element of professionalism and pride.
That's it, professionalism and pride. And like, you know, I've worked in some bars that when you're on that side of the bar, looks phenomenal, you know, like it's like these bartenders are amazing. and they all look really good, and they all make great drinks, and there's like a energy and a vibe, and there's great music. But behind the scenes, they're working against each other. So they're working twice as hard as they need to because their egos are huge. Whereas in Ireland, I got the sense that even if you didn't like the guy working the station next to you, you for that 8 hours that you're working next to each other, or 14 hours that you're working next to each other, whatever it is, you're best friends to get through the shift, you know? And that, I don't know whether you've experienced that, but 20 years ago in Ireland, that was how I kind of seen the bar industry there. It was really good. And I guess if people could put up with me at 19, 20 years old, then they could put up with anybody.
I think particularly in Ireland, because we are renowned for our hospitality and our sense of warmth, that I feel like there is a responsibility to, as you said, even if you don't like the guy that you're working next to necessarily, there is you feel the need to put on a good show for the punters who are coming in.
Yeah, like Irish hospitality, like the guest comes first, you know, before your own personal problems or whatever. That's one of the things I found most difficult when I went back. I left Ireland and went to Australia for a few years, and I just never got that sense of like routine and teamwork again. Right. So how is it? How have you been over the last few months of lockdown? Have you been in touch with other people? Has your bar still operating? What's been going on?
No, so unfortunately, well, let me start from the beginning. During the first lockdown, we did open for a while to do takeaway.
Yeah.
So we were doing sort of like vacuum sealed pouches, nicely labeled, nicely designed, delivered to people's homes or picked up. Also, takeaway drinks to order, especially in the summer, the likes of Aperol spritzes to go to the park. But the longer it's gone on, when we reevaluated the situation moving into the winter lockdown, it just wasn't really viable to continue with the takeaway.
Yeah.
Also some confusion with the rules as well as to what you can get away with.
Were people picking it up though? Like people at home ordering the drinks? Was it a popular thing?
It had its moments, yeah. It had its ups and downs. Like speaking to a lot of people that work in Belfast, whether it's bars or restaurants, they have good days and good weeks for their delivery or their click and collect, and they have bad days.
All right. So I've done both the lemon twist and the cherry in my Tipperary.
Wicked.
All right. Put this vermouth away, because once I taste this, I may never be able to concentrate properly again.
It's the moment of truth. I hope you like it that way.
Oh, it smells great. I can smell this green chartreuse right through it, but the whiskey's holding up.
I'll take a drink of water while you're on that.
Oh, it's solid. I like it.
I mean, it's a really bloody good drink. It's really enjoyable.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm a fan of green chartreuse. So like, I used to drink loads of it. And then, Last Words, and I think it was nuclear daiquiris and stuff like that I was drinking back in the day. And then one day I was in Sydney at Sydney Bar Show, and I got handed this. Did you ever see the Plymouth shakers that Simon Ford had made that were like this big, 3-piece shakers? So they were kind of this shape. Like if you look at this one.
Yeah,
they
were huge.
Shape,
I'm pretty sure he brought them back for Fords as well.
Yep, I think he would have. Yeah,
I feel like I've held one of them before and struggled to shake it.
Giant, but the top, like if you look at the proportions of this, you've got the body, and the top is yay big, and the cap's yay big. Imagine the body's really big, like that big, but then the top is like this big, and it's held on with the same overlap of steel that you would get on this. So I start shaking, and it just went like that. But it had like
everywhere. What was inside?
5 or 6 cocktails worth, and it was green chartreuse and Ray and Nephew and a bit of lime. And for the
Was that the
rest
day
of
that you
that,
stopped drinking green chartreuse?
for the rest of that evening, all I could smell was like green chartreuse. Like, it wasn't a nice smell. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
drink it, retro nasal, you get those floral notes coming back up. It was like, what have I done to myself? And it was sticky, and the sticky discomfort just like made me then, I'd smell it and I'd be discomfort and smell. It was like, have you ever seen Clockwork Orange where they hold his eyes open and he's not like, not the night, you know, like it's his favorite song and they're making him hate it. That was...
I had the same experience on I think it was my first shift in the merchant cocktail bar with a pina colada.
What happened?
It's a way to make a first impression. Then exploded and got covered in pina colada.
Oh my God.
Put it down the first day jitters, but yeah, it was pretty grim. Sticky, creamy, pineapple, it was wild.
And what did they do?
I think there was a bit of laughter, followed by a slight nudge toward this glasses of wine.
Was there a little bit like, you're never living this down, mate? Like,
yeah, pretty much.
So what? When you worked at the Merchant, when was that? Had they already won their awards, or like, was it before?
They'd already won their awards. Yeah. I think it was like 2014 when I started working there.
Okay.
So the likes of Jack and Sean had gone at that stage. Nathan O'Neill as well had moved on at that time to Milk and Honey. So we had a new management team in place. But what was great for me personally when I was learning my trade there was a lot of the floor staff, a lot of the waiters and waitresses had worked with Jack and Sean. And they still maintained very, very, very high standards. So putting the drinks on the pass for these guys, they would look at everything in meticulous detail. They would try absolutely everything. And if it didn't look right or it didn't taste right, it was in the bin.
So that's
yeah, it was a really great.
Bang on, I got the same from Milk and Honey. So when they were at the Merchant, I was at Milk and Honey, and it was before Jack moved to Milk and Honey. So I was working at Milk and Honey, and Jack got in touch with me and was like, "Hey, Dean, I hear you working at Milk and Honey. You know, like I'm thinking of coming over. What's it like?" I think that's how it went. And I was had a chat to him and stuff. But then I left, and then he went to Milk and Honey after I left. Which I kind of
strangers in the night.
I kind of think if I hadn't left and I worked with Jack, we either would have got along really well or we would have hated each other. I don't know how it would have worked. Because I'm obviously very loud and like, but really serious about what I do. And he seems to me quite quiet and really serious about what he does. You know, so would the differences in our personality have made us clash? I don't know. But yeah, he went there right after I left. But I've seen him obviously loads of times in New York. I always wonder as well, like, was there a bit of a vacuum in the Merchant after two names that were so like synonymous with the bar and so recognized with the bar having left? Was there like a lack of the international crowd going to see it, if that makes sense?
I think we still had a massive international clientele, and obviously after the work that they put in, they did, absolutely outstanding things, putting Belfast on the map like that. The Irish bar scene as a whole, I have a lot to thank them for.
Yep.
But afterwards, I don't know, the credibility was still there for some time. As I said, there was a lot of people that had worked with those guys and helped to try and maintain the standards. And yeah, I definitely benefited from my time there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Merchant and having that in my CV and the experience I'd learned there, then I probably wouldn't have made it to London. You know, I think at the time it lent a lot of credibility.
Yeah, I got that from Milk and Honey. Like, I was so, if I'd heard that someone had worked at Milk and Honey, I'd be like, ooh, you know. In 2007, 2008, certainly it was like, wow, okay, you worked at Milk and Honey, nice. Like, I guess if I heard that someone had worked at Tayern Elementary now, or in Quaint in London,
Yeah.
just because you know that they worked 8 months under Monica and Alex or under Eric Lorenz, no one can last 8 months under someone as serious as that without being talented themselves, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I think
you can't go under the radar.
yeah, you can't really hide in that sort of environment. And then once it's been seen that you've been able to sit under that learning tree and absorb all that knowledge from people with that kind of name and that kind of caliber, then yeah, it certainly sets you up well. And I feel like you're right. The likes of Quant and maybe Tayern Elementary in 10, 15 years' time, we'll talk about them like the merchants with milk and honey. Where the people who have left, they have gone on to do some cool things, and that's the legacy.
Exactly, and I think as well, like this is an important time for that, because seeing what the guys at Tayern Elementary are doing with their bottled cocktails. Now, I've been buying everybody's bottled cocktails and drinking them, and at first I was tasting them all and giving like a tasting note and a rating on them, and I've stopped doing that because I upset people. I was like,
oh, were you putting that out there?
What's that?
Were you putting your tasting notes out there and your grades out there?
Oh, I was making drinks for everyone around me with the drinks that I'd bought. And then we had one drink where everyone just was like, no. And I was like, well, what do I say? You know, like, and I'd started this whole thing and I was like, you know what? Meh. It's fine. The bar industry's matured to the stage where if someone says, nah, there was an accident. And I got two of the same drink. And one of them was one color and one of them was another. And they both tasted nothing like the drink that we thought we were getting. And one tasted completely different to the other. I put a social media post out and I actually said in the social media post, there was clearly a mistake made. And that mistake has led to a drink that I'm not as happy with. I wish I was able to sit across the bar from the bartender, because if I ordered 2 Clover Clubs and one of them came out bright red and fluffy and I'd never heard of a Clover Club and the other one came out, clear like a martini, I'd say, these are 2 Clover Clubs. And the bartender would go, you ordered 2 Clover Clubs? Oh, you've got 1 Clover Club. And then I'd know which drink was the right one. And that's the wrong one. Let me replace it. But you can't do that on Christmas Day from a mail order. You know what I mean? So instead on Christmas Day, I was like, I got 2 drinks and they're completely different. And I was like about 8 or 9 drinks in. And when I say 8 or 9 drinks
in, it's always dangerous when you pick up the phone 8 or 9 drinks in.
Stupid.
I've been there.
And then the guys pointed out to me like, dude, it's Christmas Day and you're complaining about drinks? And I was like, oh, yeah. Like, and the staff at the bar follow your Instagram. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. I didn't think they'd
imagine these poor guys opening their Christmas presents. They're going, let's have a look at Facebook and see what Dean Callan's saying. They cram into their turkey dinners.
I never even thought of that. I didn't think they'd care, to be honest. But they cared enough to say, hey, we care. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that down. But yeah, I've still got loads of videos that I made of like tasting all these cocktails that are for drink order. But I kind of thought, I'll wait, put them all together, and then just say, this is available from this spot, this is available from that spot, this is great for this reason, that's great for that reason, you know? And just stick to the positives. Now,
yeah, it could be a better way
I want to ask you a favor. It's almost been an hour. I know I've been waffling on a lot, but one of my cameras, the tally light, because I'm fancy like that with tally lights, is now telling me that I've got 5 minutes left before the battery runs out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Mitch's Minute, which is my 1 minute, make sure everything's working. But also, I get to hear from Mitch. Have you ever heard of Mitch Oh No Bushel?
I haven't, no.
Mate, he's a legend. You're about to hear from him. So this is 1 minute of Mitch. You can go to the toilet, you can grab yourself another drink, and then we'll come back. We'll make, I think we should make another cocktail of your recommendation. So that gives you a minute to think about it. And then we'll close out the show. So Mitch's Minute, all right?
I don't know that I've been to enough bars or restaurants to see that anything's different or that anything is fuck. But what I have noticed is pricing is outrageous here. A bottle of Absolute, just as an example, will run you $75 in New Zealand retail, and that's like $19 at the corner store near my house in Los Angeles, which is insane. Another weird thing that I've come across here is they won't accept IDs that aren't New Zealand issued. So I couldn't use my American ID, and this is in the liquor store, so I had to use a passport, which I found was just utterly bizarre. But everybody's incredibly friendly and incredibly nice, so hospitality is definitely thriving in that sense.
All right, you're back. So
Back in the room.
I hadn't realized it until just now, but the only feed I had coming through on the video was actually the feed that's going live to everyone else, and there's like a 10-second delay. So I pressed Mitch's minute, and then it was still us talking, and I'm like, what is going on? Yeah. I lost, but I still got the battery changed, tally lights back to green, so.
Love your work.
Right, so we've got a few minutes left. If you had one other cocktail that you think, now the Tipperary is something that everyone should know. Is there one other Irish cocktail that like everyone should know about? Or
There's another drink that
know how to make.
Yeah, it's particularly close to my heart. This is a drink that I replicated in my first cocktail competition in London. When I moved over, I was working in the luggage room. I entered a Gabrielle Boudier, the liqueur, the competition. Okay. And I used their Cassis de Dijon to make a riff on a black velvet.
Okay.
Now, a black velvet is a drink that everyone may have heard of. It's infamously stout, preferably Guinness, and brut champagne, which sounds completely unappealing. And when I first started getting into the art of making cocktails and experimenting, it just fascinated me, this drink. I was like, one, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Two, I want to like it because Guinness delicious, champagne delicious. Let's find a way to make it work. So the first version I made in this competition went down really well with the judges, and it was simply using some nutmeg, the Gabrielle Boudier Cassis de Dijon, and lemon sherbet, just to round it out a little bit. Add a little bit of sweetness, add a little bit of berry flavor, and make the drink a little bit more accessible. And I've been playing about with it for years. So I was last in London in October for Cocktail Month, and I made little black velvets as welcome drinks in Homeboy.
Yeah, Homeboy.
Stu Hudson loves the bar. He loves a black velvet, and I thought I'd make this up for him. And the man gave me the seal of approval himself, so
Stuart
it's one that I'm going to continue.
Drink.
He liked my drink. I've made it.
Wow!
I know, and he seemed really sincere with it too. I think he had a second one, so it must have been all right. But yeah, essentially, it's a riff on the black velvet.
Okay.
So the history of the black velvet goes back.
Is this the spice syrup you told me to make?
Oh yeah, exactly. So this one has like a spiced wine reduction inside.
All right, let's do it then.
So normally it's just Guinness and topped up with champagne. This version I'm adding.
I have prosecco, but I don't have an open bottle of actual champagne. It's a brut prosecco. It's as close as you can get, I guess.
Perfect. That'll do just nicely.
Okay. I keep these little piccolo bottles because I do consultation for brands from here. And they're always like, oh, what would that taste like if it's topped with champagne? And I found myself making one half-size drink for people on a Zoom call and opening a full bottle of Bollinger and then going, top. And it tastes great, just like I thought it would. So now I'm getting little piccolos instead, so I'm not opening full bottles of stuff. Right, so I've got my sparkling wine, and what order are we doing this? I've got my reduction with the spices.
Awesome. So I take a mixing glass is the way I make this guy.
And it was Gabriel Boudier Dijon, right?
Oh, you have the that was the one I used originally. Nice, good work.
This guy. I don't get to use this very often. It's been there for years.
That's good to good use then.
Right, and what else?
So in the mixing glass, you're going to want 5 mils of the Cassis de Dijon. You're going to want 5 mils of the spiced wine reduction.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Did you win this competition?
I came second.
You came second. How much creme de cassis de Dijon did the guy who won use?
Oh, he made a completely different drink with a different Boudier product.
And how much of that Boudier product did he use?
Oh, how much did the Boudier product at the bar sell that year?
Because it's interesting because it's one of those things where like a person uses. I used to work as brand ambassador, as you know, and when I worked as a brand ambassador for some of the brands, not all of the brands I worked for, the marketing people would be like, "But this cocktail uses 60 mils of our product, and that one uses 20," and I'm like, "It's not about that." But you know, it's one of the first things I think of if you're in a bartending competition. You need to just think about what are they looking for. Are they looking to deplete a product, or are they looking to kind of get to know bartenders, if that makes sense?
Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure I used more than 5 mils on the day, but for the purpose of this drink, we'll go for 5 mils.
Right, 5 mils. So I'm starting with this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put 2 little baby bar spoons. I've got a sweet tooth, and these bar spoons are apparently 3.5 mil, and I don't want to like over pour them, so it might be 5.7 or almost 6 mil. Could be 7 mil.
It could be the sweet spot, to be honest. It might be even better.
Could be the sweet spot. But no one will ever know until I get scratchy, smelly taste division. We're stuck with me saying, my own drinks are delicious. Right, so we got 5 mils of this one. What's
5
next?
mils of the spice wine.
5 mils of the spice wine. Lucky I didn't make the full 650 mils of wine, and like I didn't think you'd use it to scale. Of course I've got to make a syrup. So what I did was the 5 cloves of cinnamon. I'm sorry, the 5 cloves. I cut it down to 1 and divided everything by 5 so that I could, as best I could. I even took broke up the pieces of the anise. Right, so
you might like it. You might use it.
Yeah, I'll use this. It smells great.
It's time to switch to Guinness Cam. What's Guinness about Cam. 75 mils of Guinness in there.
Did you hear that?
What was?
I don't know how that just happened, because it shouldn't have.
Worried.
Did you see the way that just went to the wrong screen? Wow! So, do you know what that is? Have you ever heard that before?
No idea.
So that scream is called the Wilhelm Scream, right? And the Wilhelm Scream is from an old cowboy movie from like the black and white days. And there's a guy on a horse, and he gets shot, and he falls off the horse, and he's like, ah! And the scream is so ridiculous that from that moment on, throughout all Hollywood films, right up to today, people keep using the soundbite of his scream in all sorts of films. Like Star Trek, like there's a big blockbuster Star Trek and loads of things explode, and just out of the corner of your ear, all these people get sucked out of an airlock, and you hear, ah! And it's that scream. It's called the Wilhelm Scream. If you look it up and look up how many movies it's in, I don't even know how that just happened.
It's gonna haunt my dreams though, but
hold on.
Why do you have that? Why do you have that at hand?
Yeah, that's the sound. I forgot all about this. When something doesn't work, I planned in to have that sound be like, ah, it doesn't work. Okay, hold on. Guinness Cam. And look, why is Guinness Cam's not working? Go Guinness Cam. Back. Guinness Cam. There you go. All right, so my computer is dying. So what am I doing now? Am I topping this up? Oh,
Yeah, you're going to top it up like you would a pint with like 75 mils.
how am I gonna? Right, so this is 25 mil. I'm gonna guess how. Based on this timing. Right. So 75 mil by this. Let me test one more time. 1, 2, 3. Yep. 75 mil should be 9 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right.
Nice.
Okay. All right, we're back. It's
Wicked.
so hard
And then
being
just
the producer and the cameraman and all the other stuff at the same time.
you're doing it well.
And now what?
Add a touch of ice or a rock of ice, whatever you have at hand, and stir it for about 5 seconds.
Do you want to see my ice
Just to
program? Like, check this out.
It's probably better than most bars.
They're my
Nice.
cubes. And like, if you look, it says 4 by 5 by 4 by 5 by 6 by 5. And then look at this one. This is what I was doing today. I was defrosting the fridge and resetting all the ice.
Wicked.
Awesome, huh? And this is all like
Yeah,
thanks to Ice Studio London, because they given me a special rate on ice and sorting me out, because actually making all the ice just wasn't viable for my time. I found, as much as I love making ice from scratch in like the old schooly home bartender way, it was just taking up too much of my time. I could be trying to pretend to earn money instead. Right, so big block of ice.
Yeah.
And I give that a nice stir.
Just a nice stir for about 5 seconds, just to incorporate the ingredients and chill it down ever so slightly.
All right. And are you serving this in a champagne flute, or how are you serving it?
In a flute.
In a flute. All right, let's see. Where do we have a good flute? I might go.
Or even like a 5-ounce coupe if you have one of those handy.
I'll tell you what I could put it in. A hybrid of the two. It's kind of almost like a fizz flute. That might not be big enough. No, it's not going to be big enough. All right, I'm back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in the most special glass. Right?
Oh, baby.
This was a wedding gift, this glass.
Oh,
Look at that.
special glass person. That's
This
awesome.
That's
That's how a black velvet's supposed to look.
Special glass spotlight. And am I straining this and then topping it with champagne, or am I putting some champagne and then topping
You
it?
are. Champagne in and then top, sorry.
All right, that's what. I might switch to a julep. Ooh. You know what this calls for?
What's that?
The mixologist chat. It's actually quite like, it's got that air of like when you're waiting for a Guinness to settle, kind of be patient, like enjoy the moment kind of thing about it.
Exactly.
Like, look, it's settling like a Guinness. It's so cool.
How's it looking?
It's looking good, man. And look, I mean, I've never made this drink before, but the glassware size was pretty appropriate.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed that as well. You got every drop in there.
You know, I honestly, I've wanted to do a segment on the show, which is just like, how much did they waste? And have you seen Instagram bartenders that are like, and then put 2 ounces of this and an ounce of that and 7 mils of this and 6.5 mils of that and a drop of that and a dash of this. And then you see them stir and they strain out a drink, right? And like, I'm just going to add some water back into this already, like, you know, done mixing glass. And they finish straining the drink and they're on that angle and there's like this much left in the thing and they discard it. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? I find it offensive. But I worried about putting other people's videos on the show and then, you know, them hitting me up for copyright. So this is the moment of truth. Let's see.
Yeah, tuck in, enjoy.
Yeah, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, you get on board with that,
That's
yeah?
really good, yeah. It's so funny because when I did a guest shift at Homeboy, and I did Guinness and Black. But I made a blackcurrant bitter aperitif, and was adding it into Guinness, right? So I was just like going bosh, and then topping like the pint of Guinness for people and giving it to them, and it was like, I think it's delicious. So it was like a mixologist version of a Guinness and Black, but like I hadn't had anyone order a Guinness and Black from me since I was in Ireland, you know, like since
we get a lot of it over here. So I think that was part of the inspiration as well when I first started using cassis. And then the spice wine just came later to add a little bit more complexity to it, make it a little bit more interesting. So in the spice wine, there's I've never actually named it. Because I couldn't think of anything clever enough to call it.
Oh, so can I make a few suggestions and then you tell me what you think?
Yeah, by all means, go for it. Let's go.
Suggestion number 1, Vanta Black Velvet. Do you know what Vanta Black is?
No.
Okay, so Vanta Black, V-A-N-T-A. Vanta Black is the blackest black there is. So Vanta Black is a color, and to make the color, they need a laboratory and a vacuum and a bunch of stuff. But say, for example, they painted this bottle Vanta Black. It's so black that light can't bounce off it. So your eyes only see a black spot. Like even if you go like that, you'll only ever see 2 dimensions. You'll just see the outline because it's that black. But some douchebag artist copyrighted the color as soon as the lab made it, so that other artists can't use it. And he's got the rights to Vanta Black, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hate that guy because like black's my favorite color, and I wanted to paint things Vanta Black. But they have a Black 3.0, which I have in the cabin here, which was the response of a group of artists that make paint. And they made the blackest black other than Vanta Black. But I thought, what if you called it either a Vanta Black Velvet or a matte black velvet?
I like Vanta Black. It's Vanta almost like hitting back at that prick who took the copyright for Vanta.
Yeah, fuck that guy. So Vanta Black, and also the thing about Vanta Black for me is that actually when you do the research into why did they call it Vanta Black Velvet, then you find out the story of Vanta Black and you realize how much depth has gone into taking something that people thought was a simple thing like the color black and making it more involved. So you've taken a black velvet and made it blacker.
There we go. I'll give you royalties on that one.
Oh no, doesn't worry me. If it takes off, people will be like, well, apparently the name though was like this thing that people got drunk on a show and then started like throwing out names. It was almost going to be called Matte Black. Well, it never was, but you know, Vanta Black. So yeah, I'm pretty sure no one's used Vanta Black Velvet. Yeah. It's too obscure.
Yeah, sláinte it.
Cool. Sláinte, man. So one last question. Is there anything that has helped you over the course of lockdown helped you over the last couple of years, an insight that you might have gotten that is like largely positive. And when I say positive, it doesn't have to be all rainbows and unicorns. It can be just something that you realize that could have been perceived by some people as negative, but actually knowing to avoid it is in fact going to help your life, which is a positive. Any kind of words of wisdom or pieces of advice, and you don't have to say anything that you might give to people that are at home locked down.
There's a couple of things I can touch on. Personally, almost an irony to this since it's going out in Facebook, but as I said to you before, I don't really have social media anymore. Kind of deactivate a lot of my accounts.
Yep.
It could be a super useful tool, but for me personally, my own mental health, especially in the middle of a pandemic and a lockdown, I think there's a lot of noise out there, and I've learned to try and block that out. And my way of doing that would be removing myself from time to time from social media just to get a bit of space. So yeah, I'm not saying by any means that you've got to delete it or that it doesn't have its perks, but it's easy to get sucked into doom scrolling.
Yep.
They call it, or falling down these rabbit holes. So I don't know, a bit of advice I'd say to some people is maybe just lift your head from your phone now and again, get out, get some fresh air. I know it's still winter time. I don't know what it's like in London, but it's been bloody cold in Belfast anyway.
It's picked up the last week.
But I've been trying to get myself out every morning just to stick a podcast in, go for a walk, clear the cobwebs, and just keep active.
Nice. So you put a podcast on with just audio, and then go for a run, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I've had a lot of people.
Some days I want
audio.
I don't know. Some days it depends. Some days a good intellectual podcast works for me. Other days I just want to listen to some mindless bullshit and have a bit of a laugh. So there's so much content out there though that there's something for everyone.
I need to, if I'm going for a run, I need to distract myself with like a beat, like a rhythm. And so I pick songs that are like quite aggressive and have a consistent beat, and then mix them up with songs that are funny. And if a funny song is on, then I'm allowed to like take a breather. So I have like a playlist called Fitness, and at the moment there's basically like aggressive song, funny song, aggressive song, funny song, and it's interesting when you put it on when you're just driving, because it makes no sense to anyone but me. But it brought back some of my favorite tunes from when I was a kid, like "The Roof Is on Fire." Are you old enough for that? The Roof.
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure if you still went to a nightclub in Belfast on a given night, you might hear that.
Really?
No, I'm messing. It's not that bad.
Man, okay, so
it's
tell me if you remember these songs. Cows with Guns.
That sounds bonkers.
So you don't know Cows with Guns?
No.
So Cows with Guns, I'll send you a link to it, but Cows with Guns is a song about a cow who was an intellectual, and he like is about to be slaughtered, and he kicks someone in the nuts. It's like he looked kind of scrawny. He was he was tiny and scrawny. He looked kind of woozy. No one suspected he was packing Uzi, and like it's like right, and it's hilarious. Like.
Oh god!
The song goes on, and basically the cow kicks the person that's meant to be killing it in the nuts, escapes, frees all the other cows. They all have a massive standoff with the government, and then like have a fight with the government, and it's like cows with guns, and it's like done like a cowboy song. Anyway, I used to sit in my bedroom all night long listening to music from the radio and making mixtapes. And this song started with a beat that I thought was like, this is going to be epic. So I pressed record on my little tape replayer, on my little mixtape, a literal tape, and recorded it. And then I never got round to like deleting it off the mixtape because it wasn't a long song. And like, I didn't know, I liked it enough to not delete it. But it was on a playlist with the Bloodhound Gang, with The Roof Is on Fire. It had Loser by Beck. Do you know Beck Loser? I'm a loser, baby. It had that. Yeah, a bunch of old school tunes that are just absolutely stupid. And Yakety Yak. Do you know Yakety Yak? Yakety Yak, don't talk back. Take out the papers and the trash. No. Anyway,
No.
my memory remembers like lyrics for songs and stuff like that. It's kind of stupid. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm asking myself all sorts of questions about this cow with an Uzi, but
Oh, dude.
did it have opposable thumbs? Was it a
Honestly,
special
the
kind of
only
gun? Like, I
thing-
don't know.
I can't remember the words right now. It's so bad. Oh, and have you ever heard green jelly, little pigs?
No.
Oh man. So green jelly is
There's a real weird farmyard thing going on here.
There was in the late early 90s. Like God. So Nirvana, Nevermind was still played on the radio all the time, right? So that's 30 years ago. Is that 30 years ago? That's a long
I think it was
time
like what, 92, 93?
Yeah, so Nirvana Nevermind was on the radio all the time. Soundgarden were huge. It was like the Spice Girls were super new, if that makes sense. Like just like Wannabe had just been launched. So it's a long time ago. But there were these songs that went under the radar that were played on late night. Anyway, I'll send you a link. Hilarious.
Yeah, go for it.
When it gets to the punch of the joke, fucking brilliant. Like, you lose your mind. You're like, how did they build up to this? Talk about a story arc, right? The cows are surrounded, the government comes in, and everything like is dying, and then there's the deafening sound. And you have to listen to the song to find out what it is that saves the cows with guns as they're surrounded by the government, and they're literally, the stakes are high, as the guy says in the song.
Shit.
Because the
You never know,
stakes
could be remade,
so
could be
high.
a straight to series Netflix show.
No, never gonna happen. Anyway, man, thank you so much for all the time and listening to my random train of thought. Catch up next time, and hopefully when you're back in London, you can sit down here and we'll taste some really nice cask strength whiskies that I'm hiding until
Yeah, I
people
would love
come
to,
and
mate.
visit
That
me.
sounds amazing.
Awesome. Thanks again for being on the show, man.
Thanks
Really
for having me,
appreciate it.
Dean.
And yeah.
See you later. Thanks, guys.
Ciao. Right. And we're back. Anyone that's still watching, thank you so much for supporting the show. It's great fun to do. As you might have noticed, I really enjoy talking to Chris. I don't know, he's got that natural warmth and hospitality kind of feel that makes you just want to chat. I could keep talking to him for ages. I hope when all of this ends and we're not in lockdown anymore, I can shoot over to Ireland, because I'm long overdue a trip, and go visit him in Belfast, which would be great. Until then, thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget, if you're not already liking and subscribing and stuff, subscribe and like and do the things like that, because it actually does help with me being able to say to people, hey, there's some stuff on this show, you should get involved. It'd be great, because in the next year or so, I'm going to need to do that. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to continue making the show. Anyway, have a nice night.